Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. A very warm welcome to all of you to Phenomenal Founders Conversations. And it is my great pleasure to bring you another phenomenal woman, this time from the continent of Africa again, and Patricia Murugami. Patricia is a global leadership catalyst and the founder and CEO of Breakthrough Leadership Transformation, which is a leadership advisory firm whose mission is to enable individuals, families, and organizations become their next best selves. She is an award-winning speaker, a coach, a leadership educator, a podcast host, and for me, the most interesting, she has actually published her book, Rise, the 4-Way Manifesto for Life and Legacy recently. A very warm welcome to Patricia. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for welcome to this platform. I want to also thank Bansi, who's been part and parcel of getting us to connect. Can you hear me?
Very much, very much. Thank you, Bansi. So I want to open with a couple of questions. The first is, what made you start BLT, right? What has inspired you, and what has been your journey?
That's such a great question. When I was thinking about today, it got me back to 2006, which is when I registered Breakthrough. And at the time, I was at some crossroad of some kind because I was struggling with figuring out what more could I be professionally? How could I live a more fulfilled life personally? And I needed a breakthrough. So can you imagine? That is how I gave it the name. And I knew that it had to do with helping people break through. But I have seen with hindsight that businesses that are created to solve a problem that the founder has felt before has a very big impact on others, because then you know where the shoe pinches, or better still, you can walk a mile in someone else's skin.
Very much, very much. Yeah, I mean, I was recently looking at a very interesting visual that it said that, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown, and, there is like a journey that we go through. And,
Yes.
Speak to me a little bit, Patricia, about this whole idea about the manifesto that, that the book Rise. I really find the title quite intriguing, that it is the 4-Way Manifesto for Life and Legacy. What do you mean by that? What is your book about?
That's a really good question, because when people think about manifestos, they think of political parties, right? And for me, when I look back at doing my doctorate at International School of Management a couple of years ago, I finished off in 2018. One of the things that I focused on is what is it that causes professional women to not rise? Then I didn't use the word rise, but what was holding back women from becoming transformational leaders? And I looked at the whole plethora of barriers and the struggles that even I had experienced. I interviewed both men and women. And what came through from my doctoral research is that internal barriers are the most fundamental barriers. It doesn't matter if your spouse gives you a chance to grow, if your corporate gives you the opportunity to rise, if the society is making laws. If I am not internally convinced that I am worthy of being able to grow and to rise, it doesn't matter what else happens. And so I found that there were 4 factors personally deep inside: the heart, the head, the hand, and higher purpose. And so the manifesto is for you to grow, for any of us to grow, raise your heart, which means have the courage to know who you are, what your triggers are, how you can actually grow that courage even in the face of fear. And raise your head, choose to invest in growing, learning, and learning, because there are certain things that I do now that weren't serving me well and are not serving me well. So I need to stop doing them. And then raise your hand. And as you raise one hand, the other hand should be helping other women, other men, other human beings to grow and to rise. So raising your hand means speaking up, saying yes to opportunities like this. And then the one I think which is most profound, and it's important that they go in this order, is raise yourself for a purpose. Business leadership cannot be about me, myself, and I. It's really got to be about others and helping them become their next best selves, which is really the mission of Breakthrough, and also tied to my own personal mission.
Thank you so much for that. That's such a practical and comprehensive framework, and I look forward to definitely reading your book, Patricia. Tell me a little bit about this whole idea of higher purpose, right? So, as you know, like you, I have an executive coaching practice, and a lot of senior leaders that I work with, they might be very busy and they actually have a topic that they're working on. They might even have a target group that they're working with, and they have business outcomes. But a lot of them actually struggle with really finding out what is their purpose. What would you recommend? How does one go about finding out what is your higher purpose?
That's, if I was given $1 for every time I'm asked that question, I would have retired in the Bahamas by now, or rather in Lamu, because, I have to promote Kenyan beaches. But on a serious note, from my experience, I struggled with finding my purpose. A lot of people look at the work I do and say, you must have known from the onset. But to tell you the truth, I struggled with finding out what is it that I was meant to do professionally and personally. And what I found, I write about it in the book, is that it's important to pay attention to where you feel the most pain, whether it's people's pain or your own experience of pain, because that's a trigger, that's a problem that has your name written on it. And then on the other side, it's important to pay attention to your strengths, your passions, and that whole set of your gifts. And I think that's a place that a lot of women struggle with. When I ask them in our coaching and our leadership work, write down your strengths, they look at me like, strengths? I'm like, yeah, strengths, write 10, rapid fire. And then I ask them, write your weaknesses. They're probably asking me for more paper. So you see, what happens is that we are kind of wired to only think about the things that don't work. And so if you can think about your gifts, your strength, your skill set, and that whole package that I would call your augmented gift. So those are your passions. And then you look at the pain points and then start to ask yourself, how can I use my passions to solve this pain that other people are experiencing? And chances are you've experienced it. The intersection of your pain point and your purpose and your passion, where you find purpose.
Really love that, intersection of your pain point and your passion. I think it's so much more simpler than something like ikigai, where there is so much, so much more to decipher. Thank you so much for sharing that, Patricia. What your journey has been, I think you said that you started in 2006, you were working in parallel in a corporate role, and you also ran your own firm. What has changed, and what do you think has been your biggest challenge in all these years that you have been working, and what did you learn from that challenge?
So I must say that it was a very big leap of faith to move from a corporate senior job. I was a vice dean, on track to a lot of higher corporate spaces. But after doing my doctorate, I remember thinking that if you do a program really well and it speaks to you, something fundamental should change in your life, right? So I felt that a decade at Strathmore was great, but now I felt that too many people were struggling with breakthroughs. And by the way, I didn't even know COVID was knocking the following year, right? So that number has increased, but too many people were struggling with figuring out who they are, not giving themselves a chance, struggling with breakthroughs, what I call, what I call the prisons of the past, where you're kind of held captive to the failures you had in the past, the baggage that you've carried from yourself and others, the anger, especially towards ourselves. And I find as women, it's something we really need to work at. And lastly, the whole idea of beef and envy and, bile. And so I find that looking back, I realized that there were many people. We've done a lot of work around women, but many of them were now asking for, how can you help us? And I realized I couldn't do both. It was time to now say, let me give breakthrough my full attention. And here we are. So it was a leap of faith. You release yourself from the comfort of a salary and tell yourself, maybe the odds are you won't fail, but you will fly and you will determine your salary. But more than that, it's the meaningfulness of people calling back. And I recognize many may not do that and saying, the words you spoke to me in that coaching session changed my life. Something you wrote down changed the trajectory of my marriage. Something you did there helped me get onto the next board. And I think that's more than any dollars anyone can pay you.
So true, so true. I can see some questions coming through. So I have a question from Dr. Usha Rupanarayan from South Africa, and she's asking, brilliant share on the pain point, Patricia, about passion and perseverance. But how do you juggle work and family? And especially I mean, that's a very pertinent question, of course, especially if you're running. And I know that you're also, involved in nonprofit work, that you are actually working on the redemption of women who have been, and girls who have been in imprisonment. So how do you really juggle? How do you balance all of these for-profit, non-profit initiatives with family life?
You can say that again. I think that should be the subject of my next book. But on a very serious note, the first thing, and it's part of my lessons every day, I haven't got the fine balance, because actually I'm not looking for balance, I'm looking for integration. And I realized that a lot of founders struggle with saying no. So one of the things I am very cognizant about is, before I say yes, I am aware that I'm going to have to say multiple no's. That's the first thing. And I think because I'm a born optimist, I'm like, I could do everything. I can say yes to everything, but you can't. You don't have the time, the energy, and frankly, at the end of it all, you burn out or you get resentful about things that are really meaningful to you. So the first thing I try and do is to be very cognizant that the yeses I'm saying, I know I have to say some no's. And how do I practically do that? I try very hard to, instead of having, I used to have a very long list of things to do, 10, 15, 20. Now I only have three per day. And initially, mentally, I was, am I being lazy or what? But actually, I have found if I choose, I'm going to do 3 things. And for instance, this session is one of my big 3 things for today. So single tasking, no multitasking, prepare for it, be focused. What I've realized is, if you choose to do 3 things every day very well, at the end of the week, you've done, in a week of 5 days, 15 things exceptionally well, as opposed to 5 things that you touch on, and at the end of the week, you're wondering, I'm so tired, but I haven't done anything. A third thing is, give yourself permission to ask for help. Yeah. So I think a lot of us women, high achieving women, we kind of feel like it's a weakness to ask for help. No, the jury is in. I think it's critical that we ask for help. And as founders, I have found that someone else has founded a company, a service line, to solve the exact problem I have.
Yes.
So why am I taking their work by saying, let me do my own nails, let me do my own hair, which of course is okay to do, right? But how about that lady who started doing her hair, who's now done my hair for 5 years and now has a baby, and now I'm talking to her about how does she manage her finances so that that baby can get to university. You see, so when we give ourselves permission to ask for help, we are also allowing other founders to thrive. Yeah.
I really love that. And I think you're really speaking to the converted. Definitely for me, that has always been sort of the driver, right? I mean, what are your strengths? And where should you be playing and investing your time, right? What's the point in doing something in a mediocre way? Yesterday, I was running a session on networking for one of our other cohorts in London. And one of the attendees was asking, I want to do this, and she runs her own center doing something really interesting, and she was saying, I want to really get these videos edited, etc. And I said, you could do it yourself, or you could outsource it, because of course, if you are a senior practitioner who has never edited, can you not do it? Of course you can do it. You can go on Google, you can search everything. But A, is that the best use of your time? And B, are you going to edit your videos as good as somebody who does that regularly is going to do? So it's such a parallel, right? But it is true that we have this, and especially as founders, I think in the beginning, I have noticed that we might start with like a scarcity mindset, right? And the whole idea is that you are trying to optimize the investment that you're making. So you're trying to spread yourself very thin because you don't want expenses. But I have always felt, and I still believe, that that's not the best way, because you actually, there's only so much time and so much energy you have in a particular day, right? So all these tasks, I call them, they are energy leaks. So you actually would start doing these tasks, and you're not going to be good at them, but they're going to kill your time, and you're not going to focus on. I love that idea of, three big things for every day, and then you're satisfied with them, right? I think that's really a very, very useful piece of advice. And I hope, Usha, that's making sense for you. Go ahead, Patricia, you're saying something.
It just occurred to me that I think the busier we are, sometimes the more we neglect friendships, and to really achieve life work, because life comes before work. Even the language, work life. I also think that even just how we choose our language has a big impact. To achieve life work integration, it's important to prioritize your friendships. Yeah, I think I've seen too many senior women get to the top, and when they ask themselves, when they leave those senior roles, where a lot of times their phones are ringing because people want so many favors from you, and all of a sudden the phone stops ringing. In my book, I talk about the question, who are you stripped of your titles? And so I think it's so important. And practically, one of the things I've chosen to do with my friends is we've actually diarized our dates, like board meetings, like nothing is coming between us at this date, Same thing with my husband. If it's a date night, we haven't been too consistent, so we're trying to make it more fun. I've been married about 17 years. And it's very easy to get, he's also a founder, it's very easy to get caught up in the humdrum of work and life and parenting and everything else, and taking care of our parents. And so prioritize and diarize time for your friendship, starting with friendship with yourself. And I think that's the tough one, because many of us are afraid of being alone or being silent. Choose time. If you can carve out, even if it's just, I try and do half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening of meditation every day. And I found that's where I start to see some of the things that I need to course correct, I need to be more grateful about, and I need to maybe invest or stop doing. So consider the friendship from a different perspective of making friends with yourself, getting to enjoy your own company, and also really prioritizing the friendships that truly matter in your family and your friends, in a way that give them bandwidth, emotional bandwidth, energy, resources, time, and even prayer.
No, definitely, right? I mean, those sources of energy and those sources of, I would say, what is meditation at the end of the day, right? It is just bringing calmness so that you can see clearly. And I think when we are in the rush of everyday things, the busyness of business, as I like to call it, it becomes really very difficult. You can end up just running from one thing to the next, but you're not taking stock and saying, you might end up, and I must admit, I have done that a few times, you might end up doing things better and better, but you're not asking yourself, should that be the thing that you should be doing in the first place, right? And I think that really helps, taking that perspective. And the practice of meditation. I also find the practice of gratitude journaling has been, and I'm noticing over time that gratitude journaling is quite a mature practice if it is done really well. But even if we start small, as they say, 3 things that I'm grateful for today, I think that already starts building that gratitude muscle, if I can call it. Yeah.
Absolutely, Shivangi. You're a sister from another continent, because we are speaking from the same.
I'm thinking, yes. There is probably, this is just the first time we are speaking, but not the last time, definitely. Tell me something about your most exciting project for BLT. What's coming up? What's most exciting and inspiring for you?
There are lots of exciting things, but I want to say that the one that I am really passionate about right now is we're about to launch a RISE school. And this is going to be a global school, because I found a lot of our clients are, COVID happened, and it got us to think about people who can't physically fly to Nairobi, and I can't fly into London or New York as I loved to, and I'm hoping to. And so we've realized that it's important to do something that will help people become their next best self. So we're about to launch the RISE school with Dr. Patricia Murugami. But I think one of the things that's most exciting about this is that I'm working with very young, talented people to get this project off the ground. And I'm always learning from them. And I'm like, whoa, it's wonderful to do this. But the other thing that's so important is, I think that too many people have given up on themselves. And I think that's tragic. And so this Rise School is actually designed to help us stop giving up on ourselves. Stop it, because no matter how many chances you get from someone else, if you have given up on yourself, it's a wrap, right? So the aim behind Rise School is to help people become their next best selves. We're going to be delving deeply into the 4-way manifesto, looking at practically how do you actually raise your heart, your head, your hand for a higher purpose, and a lot more that's going to come through. So let's keep talking on LinkedIn and on our websites.
Fantastic. No, that sounds really great. I mean, one of the questions that keeps invariably coming up, I mean, as you know, I have various initiatives, and Thrive, of course, is facilitating women-to-women mentoring sessions. So we've also launched a new initiative, or about to launch a new initiative called Empower, which is going to help women to launch their own businesses. Many of these women would be in corporate jobs like yourself. How have you achieved that balance? And, you know, what was, let's say, the tipping point where you said, okay, now, you know, I've done corporate and I've done my own business in parallel, and now I have reached a point where I think I don't need that stability of the monthly paycheck, etc., and I can now believe in myself enough to start my own business, and especially linked to the whole idea of imposter syndrome, right? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Because I know that making that jump can really make imposter syndrome raise its ugly head much stronger, right? How do you deal with that?
So true. That's such a heavy question. I'm going to try and answer it as well as I can. By the time I chose to resign, I had taken a whole year to think about it. So it wasn't a snap decision. And I weighed, I mean, having had a finance background and a marketing background and loving people, I took in my finance background, said, okay, let's do a cost benefit analysis. What's also very important is that I'm surrounded, I've chosen to surround myself with a tribe of mentors. So people who've walked the path ahead of me, those who are reverse mentors. I lean a lot on my husband. He's very pragmatic and practical. And so when we sat down with him, and first I had to be at peace myself. But in those conversations, you know, initially you're actually going through a multiple number of breakdowns where you're like, this is not working, this is working, no, this should change. Honestly, it wasn't an easy ride. But ultimately, I sat down, and I remember even taking a weekend retreat away from Nairobi, and actually praying and asking God, I have to figure out if my life was to be cut short in a couple of years, would I be happy doing what I'm doing now? See, is it time for me to let go so that other people can rise also? Because I'd worked there for 10 years, and I also felt my clients now who are beginning to grow on the breakthrough side were saying, you don't have enough time for us, you know? So I didn't also want to be duplicitous in terms of my commitments. But imposter syndrome is loud, because I remember someone telling me, are you okay? You know, PhDs are also known as permanent head damage, right? And so they told me, what has happened to you since you did this doctorate? I said, no, you have no idea. You see, unless I also take my own medicine, I coach a lot of people around choosing to transition and remembering your trade-offs and your crossroads. Why not take my own medicine now? So for me, it was very much the call towards, you know, I think many times we make decisions based on fear, right? So I'm afraid of not having a salary. I'm afraid this is going to fail. I'm afraid I won't get the clients. I'm afraid if I had known COVID was coming, the fear would have been 10 times more.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But I think the issue is intention. Intention. As a matter of fact, I themed my years, and that was the year of intention. So I asked myself, what's my intention? My intention is to help more people globally break through whatever is self-imposed and externally imposed that holds them back from becoming their next best selves. So rather than run away from the fear of, let me run towards the vision. And I think that has a very big impact in terms of reframing our minds to see challenges as opportunities, which I think as women, we really need to work at. Yesterday, someone told me, I'm sorry, I can't work on your project. I felt bad. Then I said, you know what? I think it's an opportunity to someone better, maybe who's more committed to do this particular piece. But initially, I would have probably been crying over spilt milk and thinking, how do I convince them? But they were honest and said they don't have the bandwidth. So let's start to see challenges as opportunities. And that's the way to silence it. syndrome. Lastly, tell imposter syndrome because it's part of being alive. I think it's important to recognize anytime you're in the brink of doing something purposeful, something impactful, the loud, we call them evil DJs at breakthrough. The evil DJ is telling you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be on that call.
I love that name, an evil DJ.
Yes. So I always say, once you know the evil DJ is always going to come when you're about to do something serious, you're about to finish your pitch, you're about to have you're about to found something, put up your hand for a promotion, just tell the evil DJ, I've heard you. You don't matter. I'm switching off this and putting the mute button. Yeah, because that inner committee is the kind that I think holds back so many people. I read a meme somewhere, tell that inner committee to shut up and sit down. And I thought, ouch, but it's true because I think too many people and too many women's dreams, goals, aspirations have been cut short because of giving in to the imposter syndrome.
Thank you so much, Patricia. This has been really many golden nuggets. I see a lot of, comments coming through. Thank you for your time. I'm really excited to see how we can collaborate in the future. As I mentioned to you, we will be bringing Thrive with Mentoring, which catalyzes women-to-women mentoring relationships to Nairobi in Easter next year, so Easter of 2022. And currently I'm looking for women leaders who want to work with communities. And you will see here, under Thrive with Mentoring or just commenting on this. If you are interested in that, then let us know. We'd love to create a community that can really support each other. Thank you for your time, Patricia. And we will keep in touch and we will find ways in which the evil DJs can talk to each other.
Joy and an honor. I hope that you will continue to rise as you lift very many through the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Bye for today.